All right. Well, good afternoon, Nawazi Media. This is your brother Richard kicking it with another episode today. We got an interview coming up with Digital Pitt Boss. We're going to be breaking down Bitcoin. He did a show earlier today where he broke down Bitcoin, pretty much what it was, and we're just going to review and touch on a little bit more information, a little bit more understanding Bitcoin, how it could benefit us, and what we need to do to use it. Pretty much, the aspects of Bitcoin. For those who don't know, Bitcoin is what you would call a cryptocurrency. It's a currency that is not centralized. It's a decentralized type of currency that's used pretty much right now all over the world. It was developed by, they really don't know. It was either one person or a group of people, programmers using what we would consider STEM, because it's strictly based on mathematics and cryptography, which is how they are able to keep the money secure and moving along the way it does. So as soon as Pit Boss gets in the room, we're going to be able to get into the topic. We're going to understand a little bit, like I said, about what Bitcoin is, how we can use it, how it can benefit our communities, and how we should be using it to develop our communities and industries right now in regarding to trying to rebuild and revitalize our STEM programs in our communities for our youth to advance and develop and help our people rise to where we should be. So we're just going to give Pit Boss a little bit of time so he can get into the room. Once again, I'm your brother Rick. This is Nawazi Media. We're going to check in a little bit. I'm just going to pretty much put the video on pause for a second while I try and get back in contact with the brother so we can go ahead on and get the show rolling. All right, this your brother Richard. Just checking back in. We still waiting for the pit boss to come in, but we're gonna go ahead on and elaborate on the subject at hand and when it comes to dealing with the Bitcoin and advancing our agenda for developing our community in a better situation here financially. So the Bitcoin, you could pretty much consider it a digital commodity. Like you could say digital gold. Whereas right now you look at the value of gold and what it's trading at, and you can look at Bitcoin the same way as far as the value of it. The one thing that's different about Bitcoin is you don't physically mine for Bitcoin in the earth. Bitcoin is a digitally mined, which means it's developed through computers hashing away at a math problem, trying to solve it. And every time a computer solves it, a Bitcoin is generated. So at this point in time, it sounds as if that shit is boom, Bitcoins to be spitting out every day. But every time a Bitcoin is generated, the math problem becomes exponentially more difficult and harder, which makes the next Bitcoin take longer to mine. So, and it also depends on the number of people mining for Bitcoin. So you can imagine Bitcoin was established, say, in 2008, I believe in October of 2008, and we're all the way in 2017. So you can imagine the number of people that were already exposed to Bitcoin in its introductory phases, and those that got in at the ground level are at a dramatic step ahead of everyone else just now learning about Bitcoin and trying to invest in it. But inside of investing in Bitcoin, you have many different options in dealing with that. And that's some of the things we're going to talk about today with Digital Pitt Boss. If he gets the chance to come in, like I said, we sent him the link, so he may be tied up in something else, but he got the link, so he'll jump in whenever. I'll just give you a brief synopsis of the Bitcoin like we're doing now, and if we'll come back on later on if we have to go ahead and get that interview with the Pit Boss. But back to understanding Bitcoin and its relation to the STEM program. With Bitcoin being derived through strictly digital technology, its basis is the core of what the STEM program is all about. And this is one of the things, which is why we wanted to have Digital Pit Boss on here, because of the CRT, Calculated Risk Takers program that he's initiated and pushing the agenda and helping to deliver. Okay, we just got a message from the Pit Boss. He'll be back in an hour, so hopefully we'll get him on later on when he gets back to his location. And we'll delve into this a little bit more about how he's using his Calculated Risk Taker platform to push the STEM program heavily in the community and towards those who are saying that they are Pan-African. But back to the basis and history a little bit about this thing they call Bitcoin. It goes from this math equation, and like I say, every time it's solved, the new Bitcoin is, boom, developed. Now, the value of that Bitcoin is strictly in relation to the number of Bitcoins there are in existence. So the more Bitcoins you have, the lower the commodity price will be. Just like gold. If they all of a sudden find a shit ton of gold someplace, you can expect the price of gold to go down. Because shit, the more of the supply you have, the less of the demand you're going to have. Because shit, everybody's going to be like, well, there's gold everywhere. So you're not going to sell as much. And it goes the same thing with Bitcoin, but the one built-in solution to that problem that they have is the equation always becoming more difficult every time a new Bitcoin is developed. Now, it's easy to get into mining Bitcoin for yourself. The program is what they call open source. So if you're not familiar with computer technologies, a little bit of information about open source. Open source is just the ability for everyone to look at the direct code that was used to develop the particular software or whatever that's being currently used or that you're looking to invest in. So with it being open source, people have developed different software programs and add-ons to help people hash away at this math problem to mine for their own Bitcoin. Because you don't necessarily have to get a whole Bitcoin. A fraction of a Bitcoin is still worth money. Just like if an ounce of gold is worth $1,300, you could say a tenth of an ounce of gold will be worth $130. The same goes for Bitcoin, and it's an easy way to understand when you relate it to actual physical commodity versus just thinking of it as a digital thing. Now, when you come back to that same factor, Bitcoin is stored digitally, just like gold is stored in reality in safes and vaults. So, in that, you always have to understand that your commodity is digital and you have to keep it safe, just as if you would have a pile of gold, you wouldn't put it out in front of your house and let everybody know you had it. Now, Bitcoin since 2008 has been growing in popularity and has been in use heavily for at least the last, you could say, 5 years. Most places that you go to around this country and around the world accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. You can now set up majority of your businesses to take Bitcoin. They have Bitcoin ATMs. They have Bitcoin websites. Microsoft even offers a Bitcoin wallet, which is something that you need if you get involved with Bitcoin to store your Bitcoin. That's the unit or the mechanism that you have to store your Bitcoin. That is your personal safe for the Bitcoin. Now, the great thing about Bitcoin is one thing that was the main factor behind developing Bitcoin was Bitcoin is supposed to be a totally anonymous way to move money from one place to another. With it not being a centralized type of currency, no government or no particular bank has direct control over Bitcoin. This was the idea of introducing Bitcoin into the marketplace. Now, since the arrival of Bitcoin, there are other forms of cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin still remains the dominant cryptocurrency on the market right now and has proven to be one of the most stable in the market, which is why people are looking now even more to invest in Bitcoin because it has a little bit of longevity going into it. With the coming of 2018, we would see a full decade of Bitcoin actually being in use in a lot of areas. Now, when it comes to becoming a vendor or a small time merchant, it's always beneficial to accept as many forms of payment as you can. Now, what we don't want to be is in our community left behind by technology. So one of the things we need to do in our community is focus on how these new technologies and currencies can benefit us in our day-to-day transactions. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, one of the benefits to Bitcoin is the structure and the movement of the commodity. In most situations, a lot of people can't go out and straight up just invest in gold because the price of gold, it does fluctuate and it continues to go up because there's only so much gold available. Bitcoin, it's a lot easier to go out and get involved in Bitcoin and purchase Bitcoin with your savings, and not to invest your whole savings, because when you're investing, you always want to develop a portfolio. And as we go along with different interviews and speaking with different people, we'll get more into the financial stabilization of personal finance and family finance and also business finance. So, but as we move along, when you get into investing in Bitcoin, you can invest your money and put it in the bank, in a checking account, in a savings account, and you would only gain so much interest, which is why we see our top cultural competitors, the white man, they don't just put their money in banks. They have investment portfolios where they invest in different stocks, bonds, and commodities that have a greater return than it would be than just having your money sit in the bank. It's just as simple as thinking that if I put my money in the bank, if I put $1,000 in the bank, and the bank tells me I'm going to get $6 every month that I leave my $1,000 in the bank, I'm getting a return on that investment of leaving the money in the bank. That is my earned interest. Now, when it comes to investing in Bitcoin, say if I take that same $1,000 and I buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and say in that same month, the price of Bitcoin has gone up by 50%. Well, rather than $6, I would have increased my profit by 50%. To say instead of having $1,006 at the end of the month, I got $1,500 at the end of the month. And that's how you begin to invest and grow your portfolio and grow your actual income and everything. That's one of the benefits of Bitcoins. The fluctuation of the commodity is very beneficial to those who are willing to invest at this time, because the currency has been around for a little while, it's stabilized. So we've got a history of Bitcoin, and we can see Now, one thing about Bitcoin is it is still a commodity. So commodities do have their risks. Sometimes Bitcoin goes down, just as sometimes it goes up. So you always have to be aware of those things and be beneficial where, like I said before, you always don't want to put your eggs in one basket. So you never invest your whole life savings or your whole investment thing into one thing that you know. You always want to spread it around and have a diverse portfolio. Now, Bitcoin mining. You can get into Bitcoin mining for yourself very easily. You can Google it and find out a lot of information about it. It's just as simple as having a decent computer and you have the ability to run the software necessary for your computer to crunch this math problem. And it just sits there. Now, the thing about that is you have thousands and millions of people now working on this problem to produce Bitcoins. And not only that, you have people who have invested and they have companies that the whole company's purpose is to mine for Bitcoins. Now, you can look up documentaries. Hopefully at the end of the interview, I'll get back with Pitt Boss and we'll go back live again. But I'll try and post some of the links to some of the videos where you can see some of the huge Bitcoin mining setups in China. They have whole factories set up with thousands and thousands of units set up to mine. And they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in electricity to run these units because the amount of Bitcoin they makes that $100,000 that they spend on power look like nothing. And you have the ability to go out and invest in these companies, let alone you can invest in companies that go out and mine for Bitcoin. So you don't necessarily have to have a computer at your house to mine for Bitcoin. You can purchase computer time on large scale, massive mega computers that mine for Bitcoin that personally will take a percentage of that, whatever you put in, and send it to you as part of what you're paying for. So there are hundreds of ways to get into Bitcoin. And what we want to do is encourage everyone to look into this because this is one of the best ways currently for you to maneuver with your money and see it grow in the community versus just putting your money in the bank and letting it sit there and not do anything for you. Part of being a calculated risk taker is taking a chance to develop yourself and your community. And part of developing yourself is increasing your economic worth and your knowledge base. So you should always take the time to look at these things and understand them completely. So this is why we wanted to do this interview with Digital Pitt Boss. And like I said, we're going to get up with him a little later. He was caught up out of the house taking care of something, so we're going to jump back on a little bit later. But this was just a quick introductory. I put a link to Digital Pitt Boss's original video that he did earlier today speaking about Bitcoin. And he linked to the Bitcoin website that actually gives you the updated price and shows you one of the bar graphs of the Bitcoin and what the rate of the Bitcoin has been doing over a certain period of time, which is one of the things you always want to look at because you can spot a trend to know when to invest, when to sell, when to buy. This is all part of investing, and this is things that we need to know as educated people in our society because it takes more than Black power to build up our culture. We have to have an economic base to do these things, and we have to create our industries again. Now, this is Brother Richard with the Walsey Media. We'll be back a little bit later when Digital Pitt Boss gets in. We'll go ahead and go back live again. Check us out on the page. My Brother's God with Brother Tyrone. We're going to have a new episode coming up soon. We're going to be doing a fundraiser drive, so please get in contact with us at nawalzymediagroup@gmail.com. You can hit the link. You can reach us on the Google+. You can always get in contact with anybody through the Google Hangouts at any time. We'll be more than happy to help you with any of your questions. And we also are still putting out the information about cable contracting and a little bit of more information about getting into skilled trades and how those skilled trades can help benefit you. Especially if you didn't bother to go to college or worried about college, all you need is pretty much a high school degree and common sense. And we can help you get employed and develop your own business and work for yourself. Again, this is Brother Richard. Check us out in the Walsey Media. We'll be back later on. Peace.